Your Wi-Fi went out for 11 minutes last week, and you genuinely considered calling someone. Not a technician, just someone. Hold on to that feeling. That righteous rage of a person whose civilization has briefly failed them. Because that exact Tuesday, same weather, same you, dropped into 1650, kills you 3 separate ways before dinner. Not the Wi-Fi, the teeth. I'm Mr. Q, and today, the disasters humanity solved so completely that we forgot to be scared of them, which may be the weirdest possible way to win. Let's start in your mouth. Today, a cavity means a drill, 40 minutes of a stranger's forearm in your face, and a bill priced like a used motorcycle. In 17th century England, dental infection sat among the leading recorded causes of death. Not war, not famine. Teeth. And for centuries, people blamed toothworms. Not in one weird village either. The idea shows up from Babylonian clay tablets to medieval European medicine. A tiny creature burrows into the molar, chews a tunnel, and the pain is it moving around in there. There is no worm. There has never been a worm. Nobody ever pulled a furious little tenant out of a molar and said, "There he is, that's the guy." It was bacteria. But honestly, respect the guess. Something was clearly drilling in there, and it was definitely not paying rent. Bacteria eat sugar, produce acid, and dig deeper. Once they reach the pulp and jawbone, they discover the worst-kept secret in human anatomy. Your head is not a sealed unit. It's open plan. From the jaw, an infection has options. Up into the skull, meningitis, brain abscess. Down into the chest, necrotizing mediastinitis, a phrase no toothache should legally be allowed to end in. Or straight into the bloodstream, sepsis. 3 ways out. Pick one. And if it stays under the tongue, the tissue can swell, shove the tongue backward, seal the airway, and suffocate you. Killed by your own tongue, over a worm that never existed. Then the 1940s happened. Penicillin, that suffocation one? It has a name, Ludwig's angina. Reported mortality fell from more than half of patients in 1940 to roughly 1 in 10 by 1943. That's the Grim Reaper getting a forced software update. Penicillin attacks a structure bacteria have and human cells don't. It's the only bar fight where the bouncer somehow hits only the people who don't work there. Pneumonia, sepsis, syphilis, infections after childbirth, diseases that had spent centuries treating humanity like an all-you-can-eat buffet suddenly became survivable. We beat some of history's biggest killers with mold. The stuff you throw out with the bread. But antibiotics are the cleanup crew. The real flex is a disaster that never shows up at all. Polio. Smallpox. Say those words now, and notice how little they land. They sound like homework. Museum-labeled diseases. Let me reintroduce you. Polio attacks the nervous system and can destroy the neurons controlling your muscles. Everyone remembers the leg braces. The terrifying part is what happens when it reaches the nerves running your diaphragm. Your lungs are fine. The muscle that inflates them just stops taking calls. That's why we built iron lungs, metal tanks that breathed for patients, sometimes for years. They look like submarines, designed by someone with a personal grudge against joy. Parents in the 50s knew exactly what those machines looked like, and public pools closed whenever polio season arrived. Then smallpox. Highly contagious, often deadly. Survivors could be permanently scarred or blinded. And it ran the most aggressively egalitarian customer service policy in history. It killed European royalty. And in China's Qing dynasty, 2 emperors died from it, while 2 more carried the scars. Absolute power. Divine mandate. Entire bureaucracies dedicated to keeping these men alive. And a virus with no brain, no strategy, and no opinion about politics walked into the Forbidden City and went 4 for 10. Then vaccines changed the entire genre. Polio went from roughly 350,000 cases worldwide in 1988 to just 22 in 2017. Over 99.99% gone. That's not reduced. That's hunted. Smallpox went further. Gone. Eradicated. The first, and still only, human infectious disease we've removed from the planet. One in all of history. Which is either our species' finest hour or a deeply embarrassing box score. Honestly, both. Some older viewers still carry a small round scar on the upper arm. In 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox eradicated, and one by one, countries retired the needle. That dent is a date stamp. Your shoulder is carbon dating, a physical receipt for the greatest public health victory in human history. And almost nobody alive today has seen smallpox, which is beautiful and slightly dangerous. Because when prevention works perfectly, people start wondering whether it was ever necessary. That's like looking at a parachute after landing and saying, honestly, don't think that did much. Okay, body's done. Let's do the sky. Say the ozone hole to someone born after 2010 and watch their face. Nothing. Mild confusion. It sounds like a forgotten 80s band. Tonight at the Garden, Ozone Hole, with special guest, Acid Rain. But in 1985, the British Antarctic Survey looked at the sky over Antarctica and found total ozone had dropped by about 40%. They had found a hole in the sky, and it was getting bigger. Ozone is the planet's sunscreen. It absorbs much of the ultraviolet radiation that damages DNA and raises the risk of skin cancer. Take it away, and going outside gets quietly reclassified as standing in a beam. And the villain? Your fridge. CFCs, chemicals used in refrigerators, air conditioners, and aerosols. The call was coming from inside the kitchen, which made the problem almost impossible because the atmosphere does not check passports. You cannot protect your national slice of ozone with a fence and a sign saying, "No foreign molecules." Every country had to cooperate. Have you met countries? We have started wars over lines that do not physically exist. And yet, in 1987, they signed the Montreal Protocol. Richer nations later helped poorer ones pay for the transition away from ozone-destroying chemicals. I checked that twice. It happened. More than 98% of the targeted substances were phased out. Stay the course, and much of the ozone layer could return to 1980 levels around 2040. We identified a planetary emergency, agreed on the cause, removed profitable products, helped pay each other's bills, and started closing a hole in the sky. The reward? Almost nobody remembers it happen. No president punched a CFC molecule on live television. No dramatic final battle. The emergency just became less emergency-shaped every year, which is the pattern. That's the whole video. Failure is loud. Success is plumbing. Nobody writes songs about the disaster that didn't happen. We just get furious when the system pauses for 11 minutes. A rotten tooth. A child who can't breathe. A pock-marked emperor. A hole in the sky. All of it converted by scientists, doctors, nurses, engineers, and millions of people whose names you'll never know into an ordinary Tuesday where the worst thing that happened to you was the router. Boring is the trophy. Boring is what winning looks like from the inside. I'm Mr. Q. Tell me in the comments, What's a disaster humanity solved so well that everyone forgot it was ever a disaster? I want the ones I've never heard of. And subscribe. Apparently, the algorithm needs preventive medicine, too. I'll be here